Hello, demons, fae, and those in between. This is Dizzy. I was away again for a while, and I apologize for that. Unfortunately, this time is not the easiest for me. I have been straight up bed rotting for every day, I swear. I'm doing better now, though. Hopefully it sticks. I will be going on a trip with my family in the next couple of weeks, so be ready for that. But to the whole reason why you're here, I'm going to go ahead and continue sharing A Thing with Wings by PaperPuffin. We're going to do, hopefully, chapter 10 and 11 today, so let's get started. The efficiency with which Danny and the kids were ushered privately and securely into the parking lot garage and the waiting car was impressive. Bruce gave the order, and then, in a breath, they were in the car. Unable to fight the instinct, Danny kept his wings around the boys the whole way, as if he could protect them from the world. Even in the car, Danny still wanted to protectively drape his wings around them. He was grateful when both boys let him. He was grateful that Mr. Pennyworth didn't comment on the wings at all. He just wished Bruce had gone with them. It was completely understandable for Bruce to have to check on the situation and the people who had been in the building before leaving, but it left Danny feeling on edge. It would be better once Bruce was in the car. Then Danny could know that everyone was safe. If it had been possible, he would have preferred to wait in the safe room with the incoming cops. That hadn't been wise. Too long later, Danny watched Bruce walk towards the car through the tinted windows, flanked by very alert security. The door opening and closing felt very final. Danny let out a breath he hadn't exactly been holding, but had still felt clogged in his chest. Bruce leaned across the center console and partway into the back seat. "Are you all right?" "Yes, Father," Damien said, from where he was just barely leaning into Danny's side, cradled by a wing. "Yeah," Tim said. "But he was following me. He said he saw me going into the building. He called me a dormouse. I didn't even notice him until he came into the building." Danny carted talons through Tim's hair. He hoped to calm himself as much as Tim, or else he might go back and show the Mad Hatter how terrifying he could really get. Bruce didn't look any more pleased by the information. "We'll look into it, and I'll pass along the information too. We'll have to put some security on you for a bit in case he has others under control who are still after you." Tim frowned at that. Danny couldn't resist leaning over to press a kiss to Tim's hair, as presumptuous as the act was. "Let us protect you, Hummingbird." Tim looked up at him. "Hummingbird?" Danny just gave a little shrug. It seemed to fit. He didn't think too much about it. It fit in the same way as being able to wrap his wings around them and the need to protect them. "And what about you?" Bruce asked. Danny glanced at the other man, head tilted quizzically. "Are you all right?" Bruce clarified. "He was not before the event." Damien jumped in quickly. "He was obviously fatigued and suffering from either a headache or overstimulation from the noise." "Or both," Tim added. "We thought he might be leaving to go home." "I was just leaving to go get lunch," Danny sighed, even though they weren't wrong about the rest. Bruce frowned and held his hand out, which Danny just blinked at. "Hand, Danny," Bruce explained. "I want to check your pulse." Danny froze. He was suddenly excruciatingly aware that his hands were still tipped with talons and covered in small feathers. He snatched his hand out of Tim's hair, worried now that his hand alone had been too much, as distorted as it was. He crossed his arms and hid his hands against his body. "I'm fine." Bruce didn't pull his hand back. Instead, his whole face softened in a sad way that confused Danny. "We aren't afraid of you, Danny," Bruce said. His voice was a comforting low rumble that Danny wanted desperately to trust. "You've been nothing but kind to my family, and today you kept them safe. The physical changes you went through to do that do not scare me." Danny glanced down and away. trying to avoid looking at them in the tight space of the car. They scare me. Damien clicked his tongue and leaned further into Danny's side, further under the wing. Tim reached for a hand, not wanting to accidentally hurt Tim with the sharp talons. Danny reluctantly let Tim take it. Tim wrapped his own fingers confidently around Danny's in response. Bruce still waited with his hand out. Danny chewed on his lip, an old nervous tic. Bruce waited. The boys stayed close. Finally, Danny let out a huff of air and offered his hand up to Bruce. "Your pulse is a bit erratic," Bruce said, after he had counted Danny's pulse along with the ticking of his watch. He didn't let go of Danny's hair after it. Instead, he ran his thumb against Danny's wrist. The touch almost made Danny shiver in a good way. Adrenaline crash, I figure," Danny said, once he could find the words. "Are you all right returning to the manor so that we can keep an eye on you?" "Oh, I get asked this time," Danny teased. Teasing was easier than being scared. Bruce just chuckled. "Well, you are awake." Yes," Danny answered, though his agreement was less about him being looked after and more so that he could look after the boys. If he went home now, he'd worry all night. Mr. Pennyworth finally started the car. "Will you be needing medication or any other such health items from your apartment, sir?" Danny shook his head. "I keep some extra doses in my bag, and really, just Danny is all right." "Then to home, Master Danny." Danny tried not to miss the touch as Bruce pulled away and buckled in for the drive. "I like this sweater," Danny bemoaned softly as he watched Alfred's startlingly sharp scissors slice through the knit. Alfred hummed sympathetically, but didn't stop in his butchery of Danny's clothing. "A lost cause from the blood, if not the wings." "Right." Danny tightened his hands around the mug of tea he had been presented with shortly after he had sat down at the kitchen island. He should drink it, he knew, but the adrenaline crash was hitting him hard right then, and the warmth of the mug was comforting. Danny held back a flinch as Alfred started on the dress shirt. If the wings stayed, Danny would have to figure out clothing to accommodate them. That would be a pain. He didn't want a whole new wardrobe. "Arms out now," Alfred ordered. Danny listened, mostly because it was easiest to, and the remains of his dissected clothes was pulled off and taken away. Danny hunched forward and returned his hands to the mug. Alfred started to methodically but gently to clean away the blood. "Fortunately, the skin seems remarkably well healed around the wings. Do you normally heal swiftly from their emergence?" "Normally." As if he normally had wings. As if this was just a thing that happened to him. But it was, wasn't it? Or it was now. He just had wings. That was a thing. This is what he was now. More dead than alive. Always dead. There was a warm hand on his cheek. He was much warmer now. The blanket wrapped around him might explain that, or the hot water bottle he had been practically curled around, or the person he was leaning against. Whoever he was leaning on was talking. The steady, calm flow of words rumbled under Danny's other cheek. He could fall asleep like this. He shouldn't, though, part of him thought. Shouldn't he be doing something? He tried to pay attention to who was talking. There were more people in the room, Danny realized, but who he was resting against was doing most of the talking in a steady, rhythmic sort of way. Danny knew he should be worried about where he was and what just happened, but he wasn't. He just snuggled closer to the warmth. The voice paused, chuckled, and then asked something as a thumb swept soothingly across Danny's cheekbone. Danny made a little noise of a question. "Maybe not so with us, then," the voice said. "Oh. It was Bruce. The wings. The attack. The boys." Danny jolted up. He didn't get far with the arm wrapped around him, tucked carefully under wings that struggled against the blanket. "They're safe. Damien and Tim are right here with us. You kept them safe." "Please do not injure yourself," Damien said, voice a little soft, almost hesitant. It was enough to still Danny. "We're okay. You just, had a bit of an episode in the kitchen," Tim explained. "You disassociated," Bruce clarified. He had a book in the hand that was around Danny. He closed it quietly to set aside. He must have been reading to them. Bruce cleared his throat. "We thought it best not to leave you on the cold kitchen floor." They were in a living room of some sort, Danny realized, as he became more aware of everything around him. Or was it a sitting room in a house like this? He was struggling to get his normally quick brain kicked into gear. Once again, he was aware he would be worried about things, notably the fact that he was basically in Bruce Wayne's lap, but he couldn't bring himself to be concerned right then. "Much warmer," Danny agreed, words a soft mumble. "Everyone okay?" "Everyone but yourself," Damien said with a little scowl that made Danny smile. That only made Damien scowl harder. "Clearly you are not equipped to take care of yourself. You will stay here for a few days." "Damien," Bruce said, a mild reprimand that didn't mean much with the way his arm tightened ever so slightly around Danny. Danny just chuckled and let himself close his eyes again. "I'm okay, chickadee. Just tired." "You were tired before the attack," Tim pointed out over Damien's indignant noise. "Mm-hmm. Tim said in a start and stop. "I just think that's why Damien is concerned." Danny chuckled softly. Obviously, only Damien was concerned. "This is not humorous, Fenton," Damien snapped. "Damien," Bruce admonished back. "It's okay. I know he's just worried," Danny said, around a jaw-cracking yawn. With quite a struggle and the help of Bruce's bracing hands, Danny got himself sitting up and facing the boys. They occupied opposite ends of a sofa. Damien was tucked into the corner with a vicious scowl on his face. Tim, on the other side, kept glancing between Damien, Bruce, and Danny, all while trying to look like he wasn't looking. "I was tired even before the attack," Danny said. He rubbed his forehead, trying to pull his scattered thoughts together. Bruce's hand was still bracing him up between the wings. A few weeks ago, there was an incident I ended up in the middle of. I was exposed to some of Ivy's pollen, and apparently that, and who knows what else, triggered a change in me and my meta status, powers, state, in the state of what I am. Tim looked a little more directly at Danny as he asked, "Did you know before the event that you were a meta?" "Lab accident when I was 14, Danny said with a wry smile. "I've known for a lot of years, and while I won't pretend that it was easy at the start, everything had settled into a balance. So for things to change so drastically out of nowhere, I'll be honest, I maybe have been struggling to cope with some of it. It's not that I find it funny, or don't recognize that it's a concern, Damien. I just sometimes have to laugh about it." Damien assessed him with narrowed eyes. "The wings are new." "The wings are new," Danny confirmed. "I've already spoken to my doctor about it, one that's been looking after me since I was 14. We have some thoughts, but not many answers. Danny sighed and looked down at his hands. He flexed his fingers. The small feathers that had covered his hands were gone. The talons were back to nails, though maybe some still a little sharper than they should be. The wings were still heavy on his back. "There's a lot of unknown in this," Danny said, "and that can be scary. I didn't think that I'd have any more changes to deal with, not at this age. When it was first triggered, the transformation was fully into a bird, but rather giant. I'm really, really hoping that was an outlier. We think it was, but none of this will change your place at work, Bruce assured Danny. WE is firm in its support of metas. And we aren't scared of you, Tim added quickly. We have meta friends. I mean, I can't say I won't have questions, like how functional are their wings or stuff, but, that's just how I am. Danny chuckled lightly. I get that. And once things are a little more stable, we can answer some of those. Right now, I'm just trying to manage. Then you will stay here, Damien insisted. Damien? It is easier to manage troubles if you are not alone, Damien continued. Or so my family is always trying to convince me. It would be easier if you didn't have to worry about cooking your things, wouldn't it? Tim added, with a set of puppy dog eyes that Danny was sure got Tim everything he wanted when he was little. Danny smiled softly at the boys. I don't want to be a burden or bother you all. This isn't your issue. Damien sniffed. We were not your issue today, but you still protected us, and in doing so caused this episode. Us providing you a space to heal is the least we can do. Damien is right, Bruce said, finally adding his thoughts to the argument. We owe you so much more than that, and having you around would not be a burden or a bother. Take at least tomorrow off, and plan to stay through Sunday. You can see how you feel then. And besides, the rest of the children come over throughout the weekend. They would pout if they missed you. Grayson's pout is rather unbecoming, Damien agreed, with such a somber air that Danny knew he was going to say yes eventually. All right, thank you. I'll stay for a few days, Danny agreed, rather than drawing it out. I will need some things from my place, though. Oh, make a list, Tim said, pulling out his phone to type away on. Jason can grab them on his way in. He's really good at picking locks. Tim, Bruce sighed wearily, but with a deep fondness under the name. Danny just found himself laughing again. What a family this was. That was the end of chapter 10. Such a huge fan of found family. This warms my heart. Anyway, on to chapter 11. Jason swept his eyes over the space as he slipped his lockpicks back into their little pouch. That is a lot of plants. He has a botanist friend, apparently, and she keeps giving him plants, Dick explained. He squeezed past Jason into the apartment. Why are you here again? Because I have a car, which is better to carry all of Danny's stuff in than on your bike, Dick explained. He squinted down at something on his phone and went over to the wall of plants in front of the window corner. Jason pulled out his own phone to glance at what Tim had sent. You say all of Danny's stuff, like the list was long. The guy hasn't exactly been demanding. The guy expects to actually go home in a few days, Dick pointed out. And is an adult, so he can, actually go home, Jason retorted. Damien's attached. I concede to your point, Jason said, once that thought had sunk in. Double the clothing asked for? Basically. Make sure he has a week's worth. Alfred can do the laundry. Dick agreed, before letting a little noise of triumph and doing something over by the plants. There! Watering system turned on. Congratulations, you're a genius, Jason drawled. Now, go get his medication gathered up and snoop a little while you're at it. I thought we weren't supposed to be snooping, Dick said, words a teasing sing-song as he passed by. Jason flicked him off. Like you wouldn't anyways. I just want to know what you find. Only if you tell me what you find in the bedroom. Deal. The bedroom was almost startlingly normal after the plant-filled main living room. It didn't look like Danny really spent much time in it beyond sleeping. The bed was absent-mindedly fixed. a black down comforter over pale blue sheets. There was a paperback on the nightstand next to a lamp and a pocket-sized notebook with a pen clipped to the bent and battered cover. It was the first thing that Jason picked up. The notebook was obviously where Danny made notes once he was already settled in bed. As Jason flipped through the pages, there was everything from to-do lists to invention ideas to a lot of thoughts about wings. Jason turned the notebook in his hands. That page wasn't in English. The language felt like it was on the tip of Jason's tongue, but he just couldn't get it out. Maybe some sort of dialect? While Jason couldn't actually read it, there was enough to piece together from similarities that tugged on his memory, enough to understand it was about the wings. Something about the process of change? Aging? Hey, Jay? Dick interrupted, scattering Jason's thoughts. Can you read the label on these bottles? There's some serious printing issues happening. I can't even tell what language it's in. The pill bottle fell oddly cold in Jason's hand when he took it from Dick, but maybe the bathroom just had a shit heating in this place. It would be just like Gotham Builders to mess that up. Oh, that's the same thing Danny is writing in here, Jason said as he passed the notebook to Dick. It's something about wings and getting old, I think, but I can't really read it. Read it? I don't even know what it is. It gives me a headache just to look at it, Dick grumbled as he flipped through the notebook. The whole bird thing has really been on his mind, hasn't it? Jason gave a little huff. Do you blame him? The guy has wings now. It would be on my mind, too. Yeah, I guess I really can't, Dick said, and snapped a picture of the page with the unknown writing, presumably to send to the group chat. Any idea what it is? Nope. It's like it's a distant dialect or something that uses some of the same alphabet of something I learned once. Like how Chinese and Japanese use some of the same characters, you know? Jason explained as he opened the side table drawer and then quickly closed it again. That was more than he needed to know about Danny. Maybe something from when I was catatonic in the league? Who knows? There were a lot of languages in that place. Cass or Damien might know it then, Dick said as he eyed the drawer Jason had now moved away from. Don't peek. Trust me, Jason said. Did you get the medications you needed to grab? Yeah, they're in the bag. Just a standard bathroom, really. Though he keeps his toothbrush in an old mug with a key I don't recognize on it. Someone called Phantom. Doesn't ring a bell, but it sure sounds like a hero name. Add it to the list, Jason said as he started to gather up the requested clothing, plus enough extra to last a week. Check the closet to see if there's any shirts in there that work around rings. Jason rolled his eyes as Dick threw the closet doors open dramatically and focused on his task. Jeans, sweatpants, underwear, and what he guessed was pajamas were all added to the bag. So, nothing that looks like it was made for wings, Dick said, and tossed some normal shorts and a few sweaters into the bag. Jason sighed and folded them neatly inside. Maybe he hasn't had time to find any yet? It hasn't been long since the bird thing, and it seems it all started there. Or maybe he's just always home when he's had the wings? Jason gave a little nod. Better let Alfred know then. He'll want to get something worked up as soon as possible. Yeah, good point, Dick agreed. While Dick stepped out of the bedroom to call Alfred, Jason took the time to double-check the list. It was pretty basic. Jason didn't know if Danny was just trying to not be demanding, or if the guy didn't need much, but Jason went ahead and added the bedside paper book and notebook to the bag. Jason slung the duffel bag Dick had brought over his shoulder. He could totally have ridden his bike with this, and took a little bit of time to snoop through Danny's bookcase while Dick finished the call. Sci-fi, horror, old textbooks, a ton of notebooks filled the shelf along with knickknacks and a few nerdy figures. Jason at least had to give Danny points for having some of the sci-fi classics, even if the range of works was limited. Okay, Alfred is on it, Dick said. Anything else we need to do? Nah, I think we're good, Jason said. Something made him not want to look through the notebooks, like they had already done enough snooping. It was an odd feeling. "Let's get going. I'm hungry for whatever dinner is." "You're always hungry," Dick said. Jason shrugged, rather than dealing with how true that statement was. "I'm a growing boy." "You're a trash pit." "Yeah, you really want to go there, cereal boy?" "Leave my cereal out of it." Bruce sighed. It was all he could do when his two oldest were standing in front of him, both trying to laugh as quietly as possible. Dick's fist was basically stuffed in his mouth to keep quiet, whereas Jason was using sheer force of will and a good amount of smugness to stay quiet. "Be nice," Bruce mouthed silently. "No," Jason mouthed back gleefully. Bruce had the distinct urge to bury his face in the soft wings and simply ignore his sons, even being in the room with him. He didn't give in to that urge because he was sure if he did, neither would ever let him live it down. Even as he was thinking that, Dick pulled out his cell phone and snapped a photo. Bruce felt his phone vibrate a moment later. He sighed again. Luckily, Cass swept into the room. Apparently it was to be a full house for dinner. Kissed Bruce lightly on his temple and went over to her brothers. She looked at Dick's phone, nodded at the picture, and then took each of the boys' hands and led them out of the room. Jason left with one last smirk, but at least the door was closed behind them with a definitive latch. Still, Bruce waited a long moment before he picked up his phone and unlocked it. The picture certainly looked incriminating. When Danny had fallen asleep, likely exhausted from soothing the boys, the panic attack, and the general drama of the day, he had nodded off sitting upright. When the boys had left, Damien had tasked Bruce with seeing it that Dr. Fenton stayed well. It was shortly after that when Danny had started shifting, as if trying to get comfortable with the added wings, and ended up tilting over. Apparently pleased with his new spot on Bruce's lap, Danny had ended up curled up with his knees on one side of Bruce and his head on the other. One of the wings was tucked against Bruce's chest, while the other wing, limp with sleep, stretched out along Bruce's leg and down to the floor. Bruce ran his fingers lightly over the white feathers. He wasn't sure if it was because of his horde of children, but Bruce was completely unbothered by having someone nap on him. The thing that he was bothered by, despite his best efforts to separate himself from the nightlife, is how comfortable he was with that someone napping on him being Danny. Really, there was relatively little he knew about Danny. The biggest point in Danny's favor was Lucius trusted Danny. He trusted Danny enough to consider bringing Danny in to work with the bats. The biggest point against Danny were the same wings that Bruce was running his fingers over. Not that Bruce would ever judge someone negatively for being a meta. Almost all of Bruce's closest friends were or became metas, after all. The meta status was almost easy to handle. The concerning part were all of the little details that Danny had hinted at about how he had become a meta. Neglectful parents, a lab accident at a young age, extensive scarring. Bruce touched the faint Lichtenberg stars lightly. It made Bruce worry about what had triggered it in Danny. After all, some of Bruce's closest friends were now rogues. It was unfair to compare Danny to Harvey. It was hard not to. The fact that it was hard not to compare Danny to Harvey was concerning in itself. Bruce's track record in the people that he found alluring was far from ideal. It almost felt like dooming Danny simply by the fact that Bruce had taken note of him. Already, Danny was getting caught up in the turmoil of their lives and suffering for it. That was perhaps too harsh. Danny handled himself more than admirably, wings and all. Danny's actions made sure that the boys had time to get to the safe room, stayed safe once there, and that the assault ended with minimal bloodshed. Bruce just wished that the change it caused hadn't left Danny in a state of panic. Bruce sighed. Maybe he had to remember that Danny wasn't someone that Bruce was responsible for. Danny was a competent adult who could clearly protect himself from at least lower-level threats. It wasn't fair for Bruce to try and make decisions for Danny, even in an effort to protect him from the craziness of being near the Wayne family. The door clicked open. "Overthinking things, Master Bruce?" "Always," Bruce replied softly. With a slight smile, he turned enough to watch Alfred enter the room with a tray of hot drinks and some light snacks. There was an old mass of fabric on the edge of the tray that Bruce looked at curiously. "A top for Master Danny," Alfred said. After the tray was set down, Alfred held up the garment. It was an old Gotham night sweater, though Bruce couldn't place whose it was. His, likely from the size. The back had been cut open from the bottom to provide wing slits. Alfred had mended on additional fabric and added buttonholes so the sweater could be fastened under the wings. "Hardly the knit sweater that had to be cut off, but the modified sweatshirt will fit around his wings and will hopefully keep him warm until we are able to procure something more professionally made." "Thank you, Alfred. I am sure that will make him much more comfortable," Bruce said. It would have to be hard to miss how Danny didn't enjoy his scars being on display. "And less likely to become ill," Alfred added, as he passed Bruce one of the warm cups of tea with a pointedly raised eyebrow. Bruce took an obedient sip. "Now," Alfred continued, "as I am sure you have seen, your children are arriving in droves. I suspect even your not children will be here tonight to ensure that all is well. To that end, dinner will be served at 7 tonight." Bruce gave a little nod. "I will make sure that we are both there and sufficiently awake. Please do so, and remember that Master Danny may wish to have some time to freshen up before he has to face the gaggle that is this family." "Right," Bruce said, after a brief pause. While he could certainly understand that the family was overwhelming, it hadn't hit that Danny might find them overwhelming. A silly thought. Danny had only been around a large amount of them twice, once as bats and once at the ballet. Bruce had to reluctantly admit that Alfred had a point, and a Alfred that had taken to calling Danny Master, Bruce did not want to risk any upset. He set an alarm on his phone for half an hour before dinner, just to be safe. This concludes a reading of A Thing with Wings by PaperPuffin, chapters 10 and 11. I loved these fics. If I'm being completely honest with you, I haven't been doing all that well recently, so getting to read something light and comforting was really cool. And I love it when in DC XDP fics how they tie in Jason's zombiness. And the way they did it in this fic with him being able to read the ghost speak, not well, but just enough, was so freaking cool. And I'm such a nerd about languages, so I really enjoy this. Another little thing, at the end of chapter 11, there actually is a link to some fan art for this, and I do highly recommend it. I have looked at all of the art for this, and every little piece of it is amazing. I love it so much. The author themselves actually has a couple of pieces that they made for this, and it's so cool. I love it so much. And believe it or not, it actually It actually inspired the thumbnail for this, so please do go ahead and share your thoughts on this golden piece, and don't forget to reach out to the original author, linked in the description, to express your thanks. Please do give him a comment, check out the fan art and everything. It is amazing. In addition, please do let me know if you have any recommendations. I'm always looking to add to my hoard. And of course, thank you for listening to this Dragon's Hoard.